I've always loved the piano. My grandmother taught me when I was a kid, on her beautiful old upright piano. When she passed away, she left it to me. It was the centerpiece of my new apartment, a piece of her that I could always have with me. But along with the piano came a strange warning from my mother. Your grandmother had a rule, she told me, her voice serious. Never play the piano after 10 p.m. I laughed it off. Of course, it sounded like an old wives' tale, something she made up to get me to bed on time when I was little. For the first few weeks in my new place, I was too busy unpacking and settling in to play much anyway. The silence of the apartment was a bit unnerving at first, especially at night. It's an old building, the kind with creaky floors and groaning pipes, but I got used to it. One evening, I was feeling particularly stressed. Work had been a nightmare, and all I wanted to do was lose myself in music. I sat down at the piano, my fingers hovering over the keys. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 9:45 p.m. I figured I had a few minutes. I started with a simple melody, a lullaby my grandmother used to play. The rich, warm tones of the piano filled the room, and I felt the tension in my shoulders start to melt away. I was so lost in the music that I didn't notice the time. I moved from one piece to another, my fingers dancing across the ivory. The melodies grew more complex, more passionate. It wasn't until I finished a particularly dramatic sonata that I paused, my chest heaving slightly. A strange silence fell over the room. That's when I looked at the clock again. It was 10:17 p.m. A small smile touched my lips. "Say, Mom, nothing to worry about," I whispered to the empty room. As I stood up to close the lid, I heard something, a faint, single note. It was a high C, soft and clear, as if someone had just barely touched the key. I froze. Was it an echo? The building settling? I strained my ears, but there was only silence. I shook my head, convinced I was just tired and my mind was playing tricks on me. I closed the piano lid, locked it, and went to bed, the single note still echoing faintly in my mind. The next night, I was determined to prove it was all in my head. I deliberately waited until 10:05 p.m. before I sat down at the piano. I started playing, my eyes darting around the room, half expecting something to happen. Nothing did. I played for about 20 minutes, feeling a little foolish. As I played the final chord of a nocturne, I held it, letting the sound fade into the quiet of the apartment. Then it happened again. This time, it wasn't just one note. It was a sequence. 3 notes, played softly but distinctly, from inside the locked piano. C. A. They were discordant, unsettling. My heart hammered against my ribs. I hadn't touched the keys. The lid was closed and locked. I scrambled away from the piano bench, my back hitting the wall. I stared at the instrument, its polished wood gleaming in the dim light. It looked like a dark, silent beast. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the pipes, sounded like a phantom footstep. I avoided the piano for a week. The silence in the apartment felt heavier than ever, charged with an unspoken tension. But the pull of the music was strong. It was my escape, my comfort. And a part of me, the stubborn, rational part, needed to understand what was happening. Was there a logical explanation? A draft? A problem with the piano's mechanics? So, the following Friday, I decided to conduct an experiment. I set up my phone to record the piano in the room. Again, I waited until after 10 p.m. My hands were trembling as I sat down and began to play. I chose a cheerful, upbeat piece, trying to fill the room with positive energy. I played for exactly 10 minutes, then stopped, stood up, and moved to the other side of the room, keeping my eyes and my phone's camera fixed on the piano. For a long moment, there was nothing, absolute silence. I started to let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. And then, the melody began. It wasn't just a few notes this time. It was a full, coherent piece of music. But it was a song I had never heard before. It was slow, melancholic, and deeply unsettling. The notes were perfect, played with a confidence that sent a shiver down my spine. It was as if an invisible musician was sitting right there, their fingers gliding over the keys. The music was coming from inside the piano, muffled slightly by the closed lid, but undeniably there. I snatched my phone and fled the apartment. I ran down the stairs and out into the cold night air, my heart pounding. I didn't stop until I was at a 24-hour coffee shop several blocks away. I sat there, shaking, and played back the video. It was all there. My 10 minutes of playing, the silence, and then the ghostly melody, clear as day on the recording. I called my mom, my voice trembling. I told her everything. She was quiet for a long time on the other end of the line. "I should have told you the whole story," she finally said, her voice filled with regret. "Your grandmother didn't make up that rule. She experienced it too. She told me that my great-grandfather had bought the piano for my great-grandmother. He was a musician, a composer. He was obsessed with his music, often staying up all night to compose. One night, while working on a new piece after 10 p.m., he suffered a sudden heart attack and died right there at the piano bench. My great-grandmother, heartbroken, rarely played the piano after that. But when she did, always during the day, she said she could sometimes feel his presence. It was comforting. But my grandmother, when she inherited it, was more curious. One night, she broke the rule. She played after 10 p.m., and just like me, she heard a melody she'd never heard before. The melody of an unfinished song. His unfinished song. My mom explained that my grandmother believed his spirit was tied to the piano, forever trying to finish the last piece of music he ever wrote. Playing after 10 p.m., the hour of his death, seemed to awaken him, to call him back to the instrument he loved so much. It wasn't malicious, my mom said. He was just lost in his music. I went back to the apartment the next morning. The sun was streaming through the windows, and the piano looked beautiful and innocent again. But I knew its secret. I never played it after 10 p.m. again. Sometimes, late at night, when the building is quiet, I think I can hear it. A few faint, melancholic notes, drifting through the silence. The ghost of a composer, forever playing his unfinished sonata. And I just let him play. It's his piano, too. Thanks for listening. If you have any similar strange experiences, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Stay safe. Stay safe.